Why railroads still fear the 60-year-old SD40-2. This is the true story of the immortal engine accountants can't kill. In 2026, we have supercomputers on wheels. They cost $3 million. They have sensors for every tiny part. But when a blizzard hits the Rockies, those sensors fail. The computers freeze. The modern fleet sits dead on the tracks. That is when the dispatcher makes a desperate call. They go to the deadline in the yard. They find a machine from 1972. It is rusted. It is loud. It has been sitting for years. But it does not have a computer to tell it to quit. It starts on the first try. It hooks up to the failures that cost $3 million and pulls them home through the snow. How did a machine from the disco era become the only thing the railroads actually trust? And why are the suits in the boardroom terrified of a locomotive that refuses to die? Crack open the long hood on an SD40-2, and the first thing you notice isn't wires or screens. It's a wall of cast iron and steel. The nameplate reads EMD645E3, 16 cylinders, 2-stroke. Each bore nearly the size of a man's fist, 9.06 inches across, with a 10-inch stroke. That's 645 cubic inches per cylinder. Do the math. This block displaces more than 10,000 cubic inches. It's not just big, it's built for war. At the heart of the beast, you'll find a forged crankcase that could take a hammering from a runaway piston and still haul freight the next morning. Old heads called it the last engine you could fix with a torque wrench and a set of feeler gauges. No laptop required, just oil, diesel, and a mechanic who knew how to listen for a knock. The 645E3 runs on a true 2-stroke cycle. Every time the crank turns, you get power. No wasted movement. Turbocharged, pressurized, and cooled by 275 gallons of water, it keeps its head even when the mercury drops below zero. The oil system alone holds nearly 400 gallons. It's not just a machine, it's a rolling refinery. All that muscle feeds the AR-10 alternator. You'll find its nameplate riveted to the frame, rated at 6,300 kilovolt amperes. That's enough juice to light up a small town or pull 10,000 tons of Wyoming coal over the divide. The alternator bolts straight to the crankshaft. As the prime mover roars at 904 revolutions per minute, the AR-10 throws out a steady 600 volts direct current to 6 traction motors. No digital trickery, just copper, iron, and the laws of physics. When the throttle is wide open, the alternator doesn't blink. It just delivers. Hour after hour, year after year. Engineers will tell you about the sound, not the whine of a computer fan or the beep of a touchscreen. The deep, rolling thunder of 16 pistons firing in perfect time. The vibration you feel through the soles of your boots. That's the heartbeat of the SD40-2. It's not a number on a spreadsheet, it's iron-proof. Built for men who measure their lives in ton miles and track miles. When the suits wanted more data, the engine just gave them more power. That's why, when everything else freezes, the old warrior still answers the bell. Open the electrical cabinet on an SD40-2 and you will see order. Steel racks, each holding a plug-in card, everyone stamped and ready. No tangled wires, no relays stacked like dominoes. If something fails, there is no soldering, no tracing faults for hours. Power down, press the latch and pull the card 40 or 50 millimeters and it is out. Slide in a new one, lock it, power up. The swap takes less than 30 minutes. For a stalled train, that is the difference between a quick fix and a night lost in the yard. -2 Modular electronics changed everything. EMD did not just add new relays, they put every control and logic circuit on a printed card. Diagnostics became a checklist, not a guessing game. If a relay burned, you swapped the card. The railroad called it swap and go. Before -2, a wiring fault could sideline a locomotive for a day. Now, a yard crew could pull a bad board, check it, and have the engine rolling before the dispatcher finished his coffee. EMD's field service letters spelled out the steps: power down, lock out, pull the card, inspect, insert, test, back in service. Fast, repeatable, simple even with gloves on. Factory quality took a leap. The -2 line at Lagrange ran on statistical process control. Every module checked, every connector tested. Defect rates dropped from 4.2% to just 1.1% in 2 years. Fewer failures, fewer angry calls. The same rack went into every -2 model, SD38-2, SD40-2, SD40-2. Railroads cut spare parts inventory by nearly a third. No more shelves of one-off parts. Just a box of cards and a wrench. Ask an engineer about the first field swap. One recalls, "We had a lead unit dead in the yard. Old way, we would be there all night. With the -2, I swapped the card and we were rolling before sunrise." Numbers don't lie. By the time the last SD42 rolled out of Lagrange in 1989, EMD had stamped nearly 4,000 serial numbers onto builder plates, 3,980 to be exact. That's not a production run, that's an occupation. The SD42 didn't just show up on the main lines, it took over. Union Pacific bought 686. Burlington Northern signed for 835. Santa Fe, Canadian National, Norfolk Southern, every Class 1 railroad in North America wanted their own stable of iron horses. If you walked into a crew room in 1985 and asked what power was on the point, odds were better than even it was an SD40-2. The American Association of Railroads roster tables from the 80s look like a sea of -2s. Even branch lines and short lines got in on the action, picking up retired units from the big boys and putting them right back to work. The SD42 didn't care whose name was stenciled on the hood, it just hauled. In the coalfields of Wyoming, you'd find them lashed up 3 and 4 at a time, dragging 10,000 tons over the divide. Out east, they'd be slugging it out on heavy manifest freights, 2 at the head end, 1 shoving at the rear. Down south, they ran hotshot intermodals from the Gulf to the Midwest, never missing a beat. Parts pool managers loved them. One locomotive meant one set of spares. Injectors, traction motor brushes, relays. If you had a -2, you had a parts shelf that fit every other -2 in the yard. That kind of common sense kept the wheels turning and the bean counters off your back. Crews trusted them. Mechanics called them the last engine you could fix with a wrench and a prayer. There was a saying in the shops, 3 on every coal drag. If you can't find one, you're not looking. It wasn't just about the numbers, it was about the footprint. The SD42 became the backbone of North American freight. Every time a dispatcher called for power, the answer was the same. Send a -2, it will get there. It always did. Put an SD42 at the foot of a mountain and the real test begins. Out west, railroaders called it the grip in the grades. The secret lived between the rails. HTC trucks, 6 axles, each one planted hard by cast steel and long equalizer beams. That extra long wheelbase was not for looks. It spread the weight so every pound of that brute, weighing 398,000 pounds, bit into the rail. No fancy sensors, no microchips, just geometry, iron, and gravity doing honest work. Union Pacific ran the numbers in 1975. They charted adhesion on the Wasatch and the Powder River. The SD42 put down 115,000 pounds of starting tractive effort. That is more than some 4-unit lash-ups from the old days. Once rolling, it held 82,100 pounds of pull at 11 miles per hour. That is not a factory claim. That is field data, logged on real mountain rails. The engine did not care if the rails were slick with frost or the air was thin at 7,000 feet. It just dug in and climbed. Crews trusted the HTC truck. The old Flexicoil would hop and slip when the going got tough. The -2 trucks stayed glued. Mechanics called it hooking rail like a work boot. You would hear it in the cab, a low rumble, no chatter, no wheel slip alarms. Just the steady push of 3,000 horsepower turned into forward motion. If a wheel slipped, the AR-10 alternator and -2 electronics caught it fast. The traction motors never missed a beat. During the 1975 mountain trials, a 3-unit consist of SD40-2 units hauled 10,000 tons up a 2% grade without a stall. The adhesion charts from those tests became legend in the yards. Old heads would slap the printout on the locker room wall. The numbers did not lie. Where other engines spun or sagged, the SD40-2 just kept climbing. That is why, when the dispatcher needed power for the steepest run, he called for the iron that could grip the grade and not let go. A memo lands on the desk. Disposition of assets. That's what they called it. The suits in the tower didn't see a locomotive. They saw a row on a spreadsheet. The SD40-2, 3,000 horses of iron and oil, reduced to a line item marked depreciated. The order was clear: purge the roster, sell by the ton, not by the mile. The words read like a verdict. Units exceeding 15 years in service or with over 1,500 hours to next overhaul are to be sold for scrap value. Expedite removal from active roster. No mention of tractive effort. No line for the number of winters survived or mountains climbed. Just age and hours. The bean counters thought they'd found the answer. Turn iron into cash. Let the market decide what's worth saving. The auction houses wasted no time. Ozark Mountain Railcar. Sterling Rail. Whole lots listed by weight, not horsepower. Locomotives that once led 10,000-ton drags over the divide, now grouped in boneyard inventories. $12,000 each, sometimes less. Auction sheets didn't care if the AR-10 alternator still spun true, or if the HTC trucks still gripped the rail like a work boot. The SD40-2s were sold in bulk, 30 at a time, no test runs, no questions. The buyers were mostly scrapmen or rebuilders with a sharp eye. The steel went for pennies, the soul went for free. Out in the yards, the purge was a parade of the unwanted. SD40-2s lined up nose to tail, rust blooming on the handrails, builder plates still shining under the grime. Some units had less than 2,000 hours since their last major overhaul. Didn't matter, the memo said, move them out. Crews called it the fire sale, the last ride for engines that once ruled the main line. One day, they're hauling coal. Next, they're waiting for a torch. The logic was simple. Cut costs, clear the books. A new Tier 4 engine cost $3 million. The SD40-2, in the eyes of the accountants, was just old iron. They didn't see the Iron Warrior. They tried to kill it with a pen. But the iron had other plans. In the boneyards, some of those so-called dead engines sat in the weeds. Batteries flat, paint peeling, but the prime mover still whole. All it took was a mechanic with a wrench and a little diesel. The SD40-2 would cough, shake off the dust, and thunder back to life. The fire sale logic never counted on that. Pull up the ledger in any shortline shop, and the numbers tell a story the accountants never wanted to hear. There is a shop invoice with grease smudged across the header. SD40-2, serial 3267. Rebuild scope, full prime mover overhaul, AR-10 alternator bench test, traction motor brush kit swap, new air filters, card rack diagnostic. The grand total is $874,000. That's not a typo. That's the cost to bring a supposed relic back to 95% uptime. Less than a third of what a shiny Tier 4 will run you. And that's before you count the downtime. The math is simple. A new Tier 4 walks in at $3 million. The SD40-2, rebuilt from the rails up, rolls out for under $900,000. The difference is not just in the sticker, it is in the service sheets. A -2 overhaul means new piston rings, cylinder liners, turbo bearings, and a fresh set of injectors. You pull the AR-10, check the windings, slap in a new rectifier, and it's good for another 100,000 miles. The -2 modular cards? Swap the bad ones for $100 apiece. No firmware updates, no proprietary software, just a rack of spares and a mechanic with a steady hand. Shop managers keep a scope sheet pinned behind the counter. SD40-2 rebuilds average 4 weeks in the bay. A Tier 4? 8 weeks if you can even get the parts. Field data shows the rebuilt -2s clock 95% availability. That means when the call comes in for a midnight rescue or a winter coal drag, the old warrior is ready. No laptop needed, just a battery charge and a shot of diesel. The invoice line items read like a checklist for survival. Main bearings, turbo seals, card cage clean and test. Each one is a line in the ledger of common sense. Short line owners run the numbers every year. Total cost of ownership, fuel, oil, parts, downtime. The SD40-2 wins the fight with blunt force logic. It does not care about depreciation curves or marketing hype. It cares about running. The suits see an old line item. The shop sees a machine that refuses to die. In a world obsessed with new, the SD40-2 proves that the best investment is the one that keeps coming back. Every invoice stamped paid is another victory for iron over silicon. The numbers do not just fight back, they win. January, high plains, wind howling. The dispatcher's voice cracks over the radio. Tier 4 power just went dead on the main. Fault code, no torque. Crew tries to reset, but the screen is frozen. Exhaust sensors iced over. After-treatment system locks the throttle at idle. The locomotive won't move. Not a cough, not a sputter, just a blinking cursor and a string of numbers nobody can fix from the cab. The engineer scrolls through the touchscreen. Nothing responds. The display reads, exhaust temperature sensor out of range. Emission system shutdown initiated. Outside, the temperature is 30 below. The after-treatment module meant to clean up the air has frozen solid. The computer detects a fault. Instead of powering through, it shuts down the engine to save itself from a code violation. The train is stranded. 100 cars of loaded coal. The crew calls in. We are dead in the water. No throttle, no restart. The dispatcher tries a remote reboot. No dice. The train sits, helpless. The only thing moving is the clock. Each minute, the air brakes bleed off, the load chills. The crew waits for rescue. In the cab, there is nothing to do but listen to the silence and watch the frost creep across the screens. When the machine needs a laptop to tell it how to run, winter wins. The iron sits powerless. The radio hisses. The old ways are locked out by a frozen line of code. A retired SD40-2 sits silent in the yard. Frost on the handrails. Batteries flat. The crew hauls over a set of jumper cables and a can of ether. One twist of the starter and the 645E3 coughs, spits, then catches. 16 cylinders wake up, shaking off months of sleep. Oil pressure climbs. Water temperature ticks up. The old AR-10 alternator hums as voltage builds. The engineer calls the dispatcher and says, "We are alive." The stopwatch starts. Throttle notched up. In under 2 minutes, the big V16 is idling steady, air brakes charged, ready to roll. The crew throws the switch. The coupler slams home. Drawbar strain hits 90 kilonewtons. No drama. The HTC trucks settle on the rails. Wheels turn. Steel answers. The GPS trace shows the consist moving from yard limits to the main line in less than 5 minutes. The telemetry overlay blinks green. No fault codes, no waiting for a software update, just iron doing what iron was built to do. The radio crackles, the dispatcher confirms, "We are moving." The train rolls out into the cold, a line of cars following a 60-year-old engine that refuses to die. That is not nostalgia, that is proof. When the chips are down, it is always the SD40-2 that gets the job done. Today's locomotives answer to algorithms and balance sheets, but when the rails freeze and the lights go out, it is still the EMD 645E3 prime mover and AR-10 alternator that drag the line home. The SD40-2 outlasts fashion, forecasts, and every spreadsheet death sentence. Simplicity is its armor. Common sense is its legacy. Some things built to last just refuse to die. Drop your thoughts in the comments if you have ever trusted steel over silicon.